So I'll just do an intro to the show, and then I'll say what we're doing, and I'll do a quick little intro of you, and then we'll talk.
Excellent. No worries.
All right. We're live. You can share it on your Instagram or Facebook or wherever you want.
Will do.
Facebook. Hi, it's Linda Marcus Smith with Comic Spot, interview number 1008, if you're counting like I am. I have a couple sponsors, 4 of them. 3 of them want to go anonymous. They're the ones who are paying. And the one that isn't paying doesn't want to go anonymous. Go figure. Anyway. I'm not going to say who my sponsor is, because now he's going to be mad at. It's the Veterans of Comedy, Will Clifton. He may not pay me, but he sure pays me in other ways. He does a lot of things for me, and I appreciate his support so much. Being a military veteran and having the Veterans of Comedy behind me says a lot, and it says a lot to me. It might not say anything to you, but it means so much to me. So thank you, Will Clifton, for your, how do you salute? I forget. Anyway, thank you so much, Will Clifton of the Veterans of Comedy. Go on the veteransofcomedy.com and hire a veteran who can make you laugh. It's a good thing to do. So tonight, Linda Marcus Smith was not feeling like going to sleep, mostly because I have insomnia. Anybody relate?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't feel like going to sleep, so I thought maybe somebody wants to be interviewed. So I put a post out, and Kym Nash said, and another lady will be here shortly. They both said that they wanted to be interviewed. So I'm going to let them get interviewed because I'm not ready to go to sleep. So Kym Nash is here from God knows where. She has an accent. It's probably not an accent in her country. Sounds British.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there.
Tell us all about where you're from, first of all. I see.
Yeah.
Is this a Harry Potter scene behind you?
No, actually, it is supposed to be. It's for a show that me and one of your fellow guests, Christine Knowlton, are part of, where basically it's supposed to be a red light district, essentially. So yeah, that's where the background is from. So if anyone wonders why does it look so dingy, it's because it's supposed to be a red light district.
I love that. And red light means stop, and that means stop, come in and have some fun, and then go home.
Yeah, basically.
Stop having sex. What?
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same in the show, really.
Tell us about you growing up and how you got your accent.
How I got my accent, I don't know where it came from, to be fair. So growing up, it was quite interesting. I often describe in stand-up that my life was basically like living with my mother was a bit like Howard versus Howard's mum from The Big Bang Theory, but on like crack cocaine. And I still stand by that statement many years on. But growing up, I was a massive fan of like entertaining people. I've always had that passion to entertain, and I think that's why it sort of helps me nowadays anyway. I've always been a massive fan of making people laugh in whatever way, whether that's accidentally or intentionally. So yeah, so growing up, I've always been a bit of a theatre kid, so to speak. And obviously that then went into my teens. Like I'm in my early 20s, and I'm at this point now where I'm like, wow, is this really what I want to do as a career? And yeah, it's a lot of fun. So obviously my family have always been quite relatively supportive of like some of the life choices I've made. Some of them, they're sort of like, really, you want to make this decision? But I'm like, yeah, go on. But yeah, and I feel like the last few years, especially with the pandemic, that really showed me really how far I can take things, really, because up until the pandemic, I was at a point where I was like, I don't know whether I can actually, you know, if I'm still going to have the passion for this. because, you know, as you know, sometimes you say you got a passion for something and then you do it for a certain amount of time and then you realize that flame is now gone. And then when the pandemic happened, that flame became huge again. And it's thanks to people like your fellow previous guests, like Christine Knowlton, who just continue to show me that even if you feel like the passion isn't there, there's people who want to see you do what you love doing. You do things for, you know, you do things because you love them. You don't do them because you just want to do them. So it's always nice meeting people who have that same interest as well. But it was quite interesting during the pandemic because I've only been doing stand-up 5 years. Most of my career was spent during the pandemic. So it was weird for all of us, but I'm glad here in the UK, everything's opened up again.
So you live in the UK, you were born and raised there.
Yep, born and raised here, whether you want to call that a mistake on our part or what.
What part of UK?
I'm about an hour outside of London. So whenever I get asked this by comedians, I'm always like, just say London.
What direction of London are you?
I would say north, I would say. Yeah, about northish.
Okay. So what time is it where you're at? It's hard to tell.
It is nearly 7 a.m. But as an insomniac, I couldn't care.
Tell us about your business relationship with Christine Knowlton, and plug everything you guys do.
Yeah, so I met Christine when I started doing Zoom shows. It was around about August of 2020. I was relatively late to the Zoom scene, mainly because at that time, you know, everyone's like, is it going to be that good? You know, and Christine was on one of my early shows that I hosted, one of my very early MC stints, and I instantly fell in love with her comedy straight from the outset. And it wasn't until nearly about a year later that I was writing a show with a couple of other people for Zoom called The Carnage Returns, which was about this sort of magician who's ended up going a little bit nuts, really, a little bit nuts, and decides to go down some very dark avenues. And Christine was originally, she was one of the understudies for one of the other actors, and she ended up further down the line in most recent shows, like the Carnage Returns and Chance, loads of other things that she's obviously mentioned. And she ended up taking over as the lead role of Chance. And yeah, Christine is such a brilliant actress and comedian. It never fails to amaze me how she can make me sound normal, essentially. She can make me sound normal in the most unnormal situation. But yeah, me and Christine have been writing a show for Fringe season this year, which is called The Carnage Bloodlines, which continues the story we've been working on now for around about 2 years now. And it's genuinely, this show that we're doing in August, we're premiering it, is genuinely, as an actor, singer, it is one of the most vocally demanding shows I've done in a while. Currently, in the early workshop phases, we currently have 23 songs on the song list at the moment. Obviously, me and Christine are trying to narrow them down, cut whatever ones need to be cut, but it is looking to be a really fun show. It's got comedy elements, it's got a bit of dark humor, because we all like a bit of a dark humor every now and then, as long as you don't push the line. But yeah, it's going to be a hell of a lot of fun, and I get to continue playing a character that I've been playing for the last two and a half years. So a lot of fun.
Very cool. So what kind of things do you do in the UK with comedy, and what do you do when you're in the UK in your life, not doing comedy and acting and comedy writing and script writing? What's your life like on and off publicly?
So on stage, my stand-up is very much self-deprecating, is the best way to do it. It's a mix of self-deprecating. It's not quite it's not quite deadpan, but it depends. It can be deadpan a lot of the times. But on stage, I feel like, because I come from an acting background, I feel like at home on stage. And then obviously when I come off stage, and in my personal life, there was a point where I started studying hotel management, which was not the greatest decision I made. I was supposed to study for 2 years. I dropped out after a year because I was like, can we seriously see me running a hotel? I can barely pay my rent on time as it is. Do you really think this is a good idea? Like, giving me the opportunity to run a big establishment like this. So that failed. So I feel like, I mean, like, I finished school about 5 years ago, and I literally finished school, went through that whole thing, and then I went straight into comedy. So I've been stuck with comedy for the last 5 years. And I still believe in some way, shape, or form that I can make a living out of this. Now, whether friends and family want to agree with me or not, there is, everyone says this, when you first start out in comedy, you're like, oh yeah, one day, maybe in like 10 years, I'm going to be on this show, I'm going to be gigging with these big names. And a mate of mine who started comedy literally just before the pandemic, he said to me, oh, I don't think I'm ever going to get anywhere. And I'm like, look, you've got to work, you've got to put your nose to the grindstone to make it in a world like this, because a good phrase to put it is, it's a dog eat dog world. There's always going to be people who want to go where you want to go, so you've got to fight for it. And 5 years in, I feel like I've done pretty well in 5 years. I mean, I've gigged with a few big names by accident. A lot of the time it was by accident, but yeah, I feel like with comedy, it's obvious you need to have a thick skin for it, because if you it's not easy to go up on stage and talk to a load of drunk people. It may sound easy, but anyone listening, it's not. It really isn't. So you got to have thick skin. I think that's the only bit of advice I would give to anyone who wants to try and start a career in stand-up comedy, is just make sure you have a thick skin and don't let, bad experiences get to you, because you are going to have a load of them doing stand-up, and I can tell you that for a fact.
Yes. Who are some people besides Christine Knowlton who have helped you in your career that you want to give a shout out to, if at all?
I feel like outside of Christine, I feel like it's just like my close friends and family who, as I say, we all make stupid decisions within this comedy or entertainment industry. And it's support from from everyone that I'm grateful so much for, because like, even if I have like a bad night, like a lot of the times I'll do like 3 or 4 Zoom gigs in one night, and two out of 4 are not going to be good gigs. And even if I don't do well and I go to myself and go, I think this was, this wasn't the right night, there will always be people who will be like, look, you were great regardless. I wouldn't have people supporting me this much if I weren't doing something right. So I feel like anyone who watches me as a comic or has seen any show I'm in, I appreciate the audience being there. Even if they don't like my stuff, I appreciate them, just being there for us as comedians.
Fabulous, fabulous. What kind of things have you done for people who aren't comedians, or people who are new at acting or comedy, writing or comedy?
I don't know really. I mean, anyone who's thinking of stepping into this industry, once again, you got to have thick skin. And also the whole idea of like, if any opportunity knocks, take it. I wouldn't say take every opportunity, because there will come some opportunities that, may on the surface seem like, oh yeah, this could get me somewhere. And then it doesn't. I've made that mistake many, many times. The amount of really dodgy, sketchy gigs that I've done have been the ones where I'm like, okay, right, I'm never doing this again. And I love it. I genuinely do. But yeah, definitely you got to have a thick skin and you've got to be prepared to work your arse off, essentially. You've really got to go for it in this industry because, like I say, it's a dog eat dog world at the end of the day.
Yes. Well, let's talk about, you grew up in the United Kingdom, in England,
Mhm.
and you somehow decided that you're going to go into the public life entertaining people. And I don't think, unless I forgot, I don't think we covered what made you go from non-public life to public life, and specifically acting and comedy. So can you cover that?
So, like the decision to go from, being out of the spotlight into the spotlight, I think came around the age of about 11. Obviously, like growing up, I'd always loved like musicals or anything. And it was during school. I remember my very first acting thing that I did. At the end of the year, like the people who were leaving the school that year, they would do like a big show at the end of the year. It'd be like a play or something, or some rubbish thing like that. And I remember I was walking past where they were rehearsing, and I one day decided to go in and just have a look, see what was going on. And they were one cast member down. And I remember very vividly the teacher at the time going to me saying, would you mind, they literally handed me the script and went, would you mind reading in for these parts? And I was like, yeah, sure. And it was from that moment onwards, that was summer 2012. I remember very vividly, summer 2012. And yeah, I've not really looked back since. I've done a lot of things in theatre. So my acting career has gone from, doing understudy work to playing leading people to even swings. Swings are interesting because swings will cover all most of the ensemble. And I think the hardest thing when I've been a swing is you never know when you're going to get thrown on. You could be doing like, say, 8 shows a week and you could be off for like 6 of them shows. You never know when you're going to get thrown on, and the adrenaline rush I get as well from acting in general is a lot of fun. And I've done a few short films as well, which people, mainly in the UK, a lot of people are sort of like, oh, short films aren't really that good. I've seen short films that, some, yeah, they've been quite rubbish, but some of them have been absolutely amazing. Not saying the ones I wrote were that good. But yeah, I just love acting, and I feel like eventually it's going to get me somewhere. I think my long-term dream is to be on the West End, which is obviously our version of Broadway, but without the glitz and glamour. So yeah, that's a long-term dream, but obviously it doesn't help with if you're wanting to go onto the West End, you need to go to drama school, and drama school is very, very expensive. So that's something that's down in the pipeline eventually. But yeah, hopefully one day my name will be on the marquee eventually. But
Is the West End in London?
Yeah, West End is in London. We also nickname it Theatreland for some reason. I don't know. I don't make up the names.
Well, let's talk in specifics about some of the things in acting that you're proud of.
So I think I'm proud of that I'm able to adapt with like a second's notice. One of the worst, or one of the quickest throw-ons I had when I was a swing was I got thrown on into a role that I hadn't covered with like about 5 minutes to spare. Now, this script was like about 50, 60 pages long. And the role I was going into, I wouldn't normally cover. It was literally, we had everyone else who was supposed to go on for that, what we call track, was ill. So I was the only one who was able to go on. And it's nuts that I was able to learn about 20 pages of dialogue and get into costume and everything within 5 minutes.
Gosh.
And it's nuts. It's nuts, but I'm glad that, you know, I was able to adapt that quick. And I think that's what stands me out a bit from the crowd, is that I'm willing to give anything a shot, even if even if my heart says I can't do this, my head will go, you can, and you will. So it's yeah, I feel like my ability to adapt to any situation, I think, is something that I think is my little niche, I think.
Yes, absolutely. So you said that you've hobnobbed or whatever with some big people. Are you willing to drop some names of who you've hobnobbed with, or do you prefer not to?
I mean, the one there's two. They're both British comedians. First one is Paul McCaffrey. He was on a load of TV stuff. We have a thing in the UK called Live at the Apollo. Massive big TV show where all big club comedians. Funny story with how I got not headline, how I got to be on the same bill as him was it was just after, it was sort of about summer 2020. We had some socially distanced indoor gigs, and I was asked to do this gig. It was in a nightclub, and I was like, okay, cool. At the time, I didn't know who the headliner was at the time. They didn't tell us. They said it's going to be a secret. And I'm like, okay, cool. I get to go on stage. I haven't been on stage at this point for like 6 months. So I was like, you know what? Let's do it. And I go on the bill. I'm waiting to go on. And I then get told by the guy who's running it that the headliner is TV comic Paul McCaffrey. And I'm like, oh, wow. And it was one of the most insane nights. And it made my year that year. And then the second one was also on the British version of like America's Got Talent, but Britain's Got Talent. And that was Deliso Chaponda. Absolutely amazing comic. He's just nuts. And once again, it was an accident that I was on that bill, because basically I was a last minute replacement for someone. So I didn't get all the info. I was literally in London at the time, and I'd just get a call from my mate saying, look, do you want to come and do this gig? And I'm like, okay, yeah, cool. I didn't get told who the headliner was. I turn up, and he wasn't really the headliner. He was the opener for the second half, and I was on after the opener. I get there just before the opener goes on, and Deliso is going on stage, and I'm there like, this is nuts. How it still amazes me that I've been lucky enough to perform with big names, because a lot of comics, I think, would feel like if you get to perform with big names, you know, you're there trying to pull a few strings. You know, you're trying to get, you know, oh, can you get me this paid gig? But my mindset during those gigs was more, I'm going to live this moment for a long time. I'm going to let this moment be a special moment. I'm not going to think about if I get a paid gig after this or not. The fact that I'm on the bill with TV comics is something that I think younger me would have probably wanted to die for. So I'm very grateful that I got to do those gigs.
Absolutely. What do you want out of life, on and off publicness?
I think behind the curtain, I want a life that is not as chaotic as it has been for the last 3 or 4 years. I want to be in a place mentally where I can wake up every day and go, right, let's not have a mental breakdown today. And I think publicly, I want to probably live a life where, people like me for who I am, and people can stop judging me just because I'm a young comic. Because I get this all the time as a young comic. Whenever I see like comics who are like in their 40s, 50s, even 60s, you know, they always look down to younger people like me, because they're like, oh, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know. And it's like, actually, a lot of the times I've proven these comics wrong, and I've ended up being funnier than them. And it is funny. it's funny when like a 60-year-old comic comes up to you and goes, "Oh, I bet you're not going to be any good," and then you prove them wrong. The look on their face goes from being smug to right.
I hate it. I hate that the old people, and I'm talking about myself, my group of people my age are always shitting on the young people in comedy, in life. And I'm sick of it. And I'm sick of hearing it from a microphone.
Yeah, it's one of them things as well. I think another thing in comedy that I feel like definitely during the pandemic, which made me think a lot, is I think comics and audiences need to start being more accepting of like mental health in general, and not just in comedy, but just in general. Mental health needs to stop being seen as a stigma and needs to actually be seen as, okay, people with mental health, problems, yeah, they're slightly different, but on the inside, they just want what everyone else wants. They want, a life where they can't be, stigmatized all the time. The amount of times that I've told people, "Oh, I've got like depression and stuff," and they go, "You're nothing like me," like that totty-nosed sort of thing. It annoys me, but I feel like, especially now after the pandemic, I think that people opened up a bit more because, when you're stuck at home with depression during a pandemic, it doesn't help. And I feel like audiences are now starting to open up a bit more. They're starting to open up a bit more now, but I still think we're a long way to go, I think.
I'm not happy for worldwide suffering, but I am happy that people are realizing with social media and with television or whatever, that everybody's having a hard time, and it's helping the stigma of mental health.
Yeah, it is one of them things. And I think that's what the pandemic had also shown us, is that, there's people like me who have mental health, and all we want from a mental health perspective is we just want people to accept us for who we are, not to look down at us like we're some, like a rat on up an alleyway or something like that. We want to be accepted as if we're one of them.
Yes.
Like I say, I feel like we're starting to get there, but there's still a very long way to go, I think.
Absolutely. I have brain trauma. And when you have brain trauma, many times, people suffer with depression after that, or suicidal thoughts, or trouble coping. And people, when you do comedy with a brain injury, you have a hard time memorizing. I could never do what you're doing with your acting, memorizing your lines in 5 minutes. Never. It takes me 2 weeks, 60 times a day to remember 5 minutes set. So, and I refuse to go up on stage with notes. Unless I'm trying new material at a mic, but people, for the longest time, people would really look down on me doing comedy with a brain injury. And that doesn't help people's mental well-being, to be looked down on and judged or not accepted or not thought to be equal. You're a human. We're all in this stupid boat that's going nowhere together. Why can't we all just quit trying to be better than each other?
Yeah, exactly. We're all in the same lifeboat at the end of the day. That's the way I see it. We're all in this tiny little lifeboat that's in the middle of the ocean. None of us know where it's going, but we just know that it's going somewhere. And I feel like as comedians and as humans in that same lifeboat, I'm not asking for like peace. I'm not asking for like this whole world where like, everyone is equal. I'm asking for like equality to an extent where it's healthy equality, not like, unhealthy equality where it's like, okay, men and women can do this, this, and this, and this, and this. But I just want people, especially with mental health, to actually be recognized as human and not as, to quote some people, freaks. Because we're constantly being judged as if we're something in a freak show. Absolutely. But we're not. We're human at the end of the day. And like I say, we're all in the same lifeboat.
Exactly. I can't agree with you any more than. So you're in United, let's switch gears here.
Mhm.
As we get kind of towards the end portion, not quite yet, but
Mhm.
you're in the United Kingdom and the world's falling, going to hell in a handbasket, if you ask me, not
Yeah.
just America, the entire frickin' world. And we see it in front of us everywhere we look. We can't escape the BS in the world everywhere. And there's so much destruction and death and dying, and you're in the United Kingdom, which is closer to the Ukraine and Russia than we are. So how is
Yeah.
your peace of mind and your mental health being closer in proximity than we are? How does that feel to be?
Um, I feel like with the whole Ukraine Russia thing, I think obviously when it first all started kicking off, everyone's sort of going in the same direction of, oh, is this World War III finally going to happen? And it's like, if you're going in the mindset of you wanting a war to happen, mass destruction, mass genocide, then you're looking at it in the wrong way. I don't condone anything that's going on with the situation. I know comics now who on the UK scene, they're joking about this, they're joking about buildings getting blown up, people dying. And it's like, you got to look at the perspective of what if that was you in that house when it went down? How do you think you would feel, like whether there's an afterlife or not? I'm an atheist, I'm open to everyone. It's good to be open-minded. But, how do you think, the dead are feeling, knowing that people are joking about their tragedy for just a cheap laugh? It's a sad situation. And I hope it can get resolved in a less violent way. Obviously, that's something that the higher powers can sort by. It's a scary time to live in. It's like just what we needed. We needed a 2.5, 3 year pandemic, mass death and everything. And then we get 6 months to a year of calm, and then we get this again. I always say there's people in my life who are always like, oh, I want to live forever and stuff like that. And it's like, look, death is coming for you, whether you like it or not. Live every day whilst you have it, because don't fret on the things you didn't do or you haven't done. Just take every day as it is, whether you're a stand-up comedian or whether you're, say, a housewife or anything. Just live every day as if it was your last, because that last day, it's coming. You just don't know when it is.
Exactly. And don't think you're better than anybody. If you heard nothing else from what we were chatting about, everybody's equal, whether you want to think you are or not, everybody's equal. And live every day as your last, because it just might be.
Yeah, that's the thing. You never know when it's going to be your last.
Yes, you don't. Look at every day. I mean, Facebook is like obituary central lately.
Yeah, I've noticed there's been a lot. There's really has been. And it feels like, I don't think social media helps either with mental health as well. It really doesn't. We look at people on like reality TV, and there's young people like me or younger people around my age who are like, oh, I want to be like this person, I want to live this life. And it's like, you don't know what their life is behind those cameras, like behind those closed doors. And social media really doesn't help. I feel like it does more harm than good at the end of the day, really.
Yeah. Well, what would you like people, let's say today is your last day. Let's just go out on a limb. Tomorrow, what do you want people to say on Facebook about you? And for the next 100 years, how do you want to be remembered?
I think I want to be remembered as a guy who, he tried everything. He tried to make him, I don't know. I feel like it's one of them things where it's like, what do you genuinely want to be remembered for? And I just want to be remembered as a guy who tried, to either make people laugh or to make people feel like, even if it's for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or even an hour, at least make them feel like they're equal and they're not alone in this world. Because I've had several people come up to me after like gigs when I've talked about mental health and stigma and everything, and they come up to me and genuinely say, you know, that's the first time I felt equal. And it's always amazing when you get that feeling of people coming up to you saying, look, you made me feel like I had a purpose. I think one of the best examples of that was I had a gig about 2 years ago, not long after the pandemic, and this woman came up to me after the gig. Throughout the pandemic, you know, she got divorced, she had a miscarriage, and it was I was doing some material about like how, you know, in this world, you know, it's all dog eat dog, but at the end of the day, you should only focus on yourself, not anyone else. If anything, just focus on yourself. And this woman came up to me afterwards and she was like, considering the stuff I'd gone through during the pandemic, she was like, you finally made me feel equal and it's given me a bit of peace. And I was just like, you realize I'm not a therapist. You shouldn't take anything I say for gospel. But it felt nice to know that even in a tiny little way, I've made someone's day different.
That's beautiful. Very beautiful. Who's your favorite comedian in the world? Just a couple quick one thought joke questions.
Favorite comedian?
Living or dead?
Living or dead? That's
Doesn't have to be American.
In general, I think one of my inspirations as a comedian was Robin Williams. Absolute legend. I loved all his stuff growing up. And I think that was the first comedian sort of death that really hit me. It was that sort of thing of, oh wow, he's actually gone. But yeah, Robin Williams is a huge inspiration for me as a comedian and as an actor as well.
Oh my gosh, yes. Brilliant actor. So I want to tell you something, and it might make you tear up about Robin. You ready?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So I was homeless for a while in San Francisco around the time when he was, you know, that's where his home was, just south of Haight and Ashbury on the water. And every day he would walk from the south of Haight and Ashbury, he would walk up the water, up the, you know, like the ocean side, and he'd come up Haight and walk through the Haight and talk to all the homeless people, Kym. And when he would stop and talk to the homeless, if they would just talk to him like he was their equal, he would stay and talk forever. But the minute that they would act affected, he would leave. So that's one thing. And remember the movie he did with Patch Adams?
Yeah, massive. I love it.
Yeah. So after that movie, which changed his life, so he's a resident of San Francisco area. There's a hospital there called USF, University of San Francisco, and they have a whole children's wing. And he went every Christmas after that, his whole life, from then on, every Christmas, he went through the children's ward, asked every child what they wanted for Christmas, went and shopped for all their gifts himself, wrapped them all, and delivered them all. And that's who Robin is.
That's the sort of person we need more of in this world. Just people like that who, no matter what your like status in this world is, you know, you could be the richest person in the world or the poorest. You know, he didn't have to treat people like equals. You know, he's a celebrity. You know, he's worked his way up there. You know, he didn't have to do any of that stuff. But the fact that he decided to treat everyone as an equal, there's people, we need more people like him in this world. And he is honestly so missed.
So he's a bit of a savant, I would think. And are you? You have a spot on memory, right? So does that kind of make you a savant in a way?
Yeah, I'd say so, I think.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. And maybe that's the affinity you have with Robin.
Yeah, I think that you're probably right there.
Yeah. Well, what are some things that we can do to support your career?
Okay, so obviously come see all these different shows that I'm in. I'm also a part of a sketch troupe called the Sketch Players. We recently did a show called Sketch In, Sketch Out, which was 11 sketches in just over an hour. There were some amazing sketches. There was a sketch about Oscar Wilde. There was a sketch about passive aggressiveness. There was a sketch about these people waiting for nothing, literally. And it's a really was a fun show. We've also got the Carnage Bloodlines, which is premiering at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival in August. This is a completely new show, which me and Christine have been working on for the last few months. We're also doing workshops of it. The next workshop for Bloodlines is March 18th on Zoom. So the workshops, people can come in and watch, and they can give us feedback, let us know what they liked about the show. And yeah, there's a lot of exciting projects coming up, and 2023 is looking to be a really exciting year.
So go to Kym Nash on Facebook and Instagram.
Yep, on Instagram you can find me at K Nash Stand Up 01. There's a lot of stuff coming up there. Projects wise, I can't say a lot of at the moment. But we've got some very exciting things, and a show that me and Christine wrote last year, and we took to a couple of festivals called And Chance. We are doing a pro shot of it, and we are also doing a cast recording as well. So you're going to be able to eventually listen to the songs of the show. There's some really good songs in the shows. A lot of the shows that me and Christine write, they're sort of covers of some really popular songs. So in Bloodlines, we've got songs from musicals such as Moulin Rouge. We've got El Tango de Roxanne from Moulin Rouge in there. Wonderful song, very vocally demanding. And there's stuff in there for everyone. There's a bit of sexual humor. There's dark humor. There's all sorts in there. And Bloodlines is going to be a good hour or so for people to just sit back, forget what's happening outside, and just enjoy a good hour of comedy and musical theatre.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. One last question.
Mm-hmm.
With all that you've accomplished, when you're walking around where you live, do people recognize you from what all you've done?
I don't get recognized in the sense of like people will come up to me going, oh, you did this or this or this. But there are occasionally times where when I go into London, there will be maybe audience members who've seen me at a couple of clubs, and they will come up to me and say, oh, I remember you did this, this, and this. And I'm always like, if people ever like notice me, I'm grateful that they can remember my face. And also I appreciate, I will always, if someone comes up to me, be happy to stand or sit for like 20 minutes and have a good conversation, because I don't want people, to come to a comedy show thinking, oh, I'm never going to get to talk to that person because they won't treat me as a equal human being. But I feel like even no matter what your status is, to me, you will always be equal in my eyes, whether you're a homeless person or whether you're like the richest person in the world. I will treat you as a human being, and I will treat you the way you want to be treated.
That's fabulous. I have so enjoyed getting to know you. Do you have any comments or questions, or did I not ask something that you want to cover?
No, really. It was nice to do this, and I appreciate any opportunity that comes up, especially opportunities where we get to strip back essentially, and we get to actually once again talk like equal people. Because I've done a couple of Zoom shows with you, and I do Zoom shows with a lot of comics, and it is always nice just to actually sit down and just go, let's talk. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Thank you. This will go, I'll share it to my Facebook, Instagram, and my YouTube. And so my YouTube is comedian Linda Marcus Smith, And what's your YouTube, just so people know?
So yeah, on YouTube, you can find me, Kym Nash Comedy. I occasionally upload a couple of sets, some sketches as well, and a Facebook page to follow is Nash and Monkhouse Productions, where you'll get to find out about all the shows we're doing. And also we upload a couple of sketches. We try to upload 3 sketches a week, and they're always a lot of fun, and they tend to be really well received. So yeah, go check us out on Facebook.
Super duper. Thank you so much, Kym Nash. Love you.
No
lots.
worries, no worries.
Okay, bye.
Okay, thank you very
Bye.
much.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.